the massive alien ship appeared above Earth without warning. It was bigger than anything humans had ever built. A floating city of metal and light that blocked out the sun over the Pacific Ocean. Every radar, every satellite, every sensor on the planet screamed warnings at the same time. Captain Ji Woo stood on the bridge of the orbital defense station, watching the alien vessel through the viewport. She had gray streaks in her black hair and scars on her hands from 20 years in the military. She didn't look scared. She looked annoyed. The aliens sent a message in perfect English. They had been listening to Earth's radio signals for decades, learning everything about humanity. The voice that came through was cold and buzzing, like insects talking through a computer. Primitive species of Earth, we are the Galactic Council. We represent 14 advanced civilizations that rule this sector of space. You will submit to our authority. You will surrender your weapons. You will accept our governance. You have 10 of your days to comply. If you refuse, we will destroy your cities from orbit. This is not a negotiation. This is an order. The transmission ended. Silence filled the bridge. Junior officers looked at each other nervously. They had trained for first contact, but not like this. Not with threats and demands. Ji Woo pressed the communication button. Attention, alien vessel. This is Captain Ji Woo of the United Earth Defense Force. We're sending a shuttle to bring your representatives to our station. We'll discuss your proposal face to face. 2 hours later, the alien delegation arrived. There were 3 of them, each from a different species. The leader called himself Ambassador Taeyang. He looked like a giant mantis, 7 feet tall with 4 arms and compound eyes that sparkled like jewels. His skin was the color of bronze, and he wore robes made of some shimmering material that changed colors when he moved. Ji Woo met them in the conference room. She brought Admiral Dongjun, the head of Earth's military, and Major Haijin, their best strategic officer. The humans sat on one side of the table. The aliens sat on the other. Taeyang spoke first. His voice came from a translator device on his chest. You received our message. What is your answer? Ji Woo leaned back in her chair. Let me make sure I understand. You want us to give up our weapons, surrender our independence, and let you rule us. Is that correct? Yes. The Council has governed this region for 3,000 years. When we discover a new species, they join us. It is the natural order. You are not special. You will comply like all the others. Admiral Dongjun, an older man with white hair and sharp eyes, tapped his fingers on the table. And what happens if we say no? Then we will demonstrate our power. We will destroy one of your cities as a warning. If you still refuse, we will continue until you surrender, or until there is nothing left. Surrender. The room went quiet. The aliens looked confident, almost bored. They had done this hundreds of times before. They expected the humans to panic, to beg for mercy, to offer anything to avoid destruction. Instead, Ji Woo started laughing. It wasn't a nervous laugh. It wasn't a fake laugh. It was real, genuine laughter that made her shoulders shake. She laughed so hard that tears formed in her eyes. Major Haijin smiled. Admiral Dongjun covered his mouth to hide his grin. Taeyang's antennae twitched in confusion. You find our threat amusing? Ji Woo wiped her eyes and took a breath. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It's just, you really have no idea what you're dealing with, do you? We are dealing with a primitive species that has barely left its own planet. We have sensors. We have watched you. You fight with missiles and bullets. You still use chemical rockets. You are children playing with toys. Right, and your ancient civilizations with superior technology and thousands of years of experience. Ji Woo stood up and walked to the window. Earth floated below, blue and white and beautiful. Let me ask you something, Ambassador. How many wars has the Galactic Council fought in the last 1,000 years? Tae-yang straightened with pride. 3. We have brought peace to our territory. War is rare, because all species understand our power. 3 wars in 1,000 years. That's cute. Ji Woo turned back to face him. Humanity has fought approximately 15,000 wars in our recorded history. We've been killing each other with increasing creativity and efficiency for 10,000 years. We've invented weapons so terrible that we banned ourselves from using them. We've split atoms, weaponized diseases, and created bombs that can turn entire cities into glass. And that was before we left our planet. One of the other aliens, a blob-like creature with tentacles, made a gurgling sound. You speak of killing your own species as if it is something to be proud of. I'm not proud of it. I'm stating a fact. You want to threaten us with orbital bombardment? We've been preparing for that scenario for 60 years. You think you can scare us into submission? Ambassador, humans don't scare easily. We're the species that looked at the deadliest predators on our planet and decided to make them into pets. We're the species that invented nuclear weapons and then built thousands of them just to make sure everyone understood the consequences of using them. Tae-jiang slammed one of his 4 hands on the table. Your bravado is meaningless. Our fleet will arrive in 3 days. You will see our power, and you will kneel. Ji Woo walked back to the table and leaned forward, her hands flat on the surface, her eyes locked on Tae-yang's compound gaze. Bring your fleet. Please, I'm begging you. Bring every ship you have. Show us this legendary power, because I want you to understand something very clearly. She smiled, and it was not a friendly smile. For 3,000 years, you've been the biggest bully in this sector of space. You've never met anyone who could fight back. You've never faced an enemy that wanted to fight back. You've gotten soft, Ambassador. You've forgotten what real war looks like. But humans? We remember. We've never stopped fighting. We've never stopped preparing. We've never stopped building bigger, better, more efficient ways to destroy our enemies. Major Hai Jin pulled up a holographic display. It showed Earth's defense network. Satellites, weapons platforms, railgun installations, missile silos. There were thousands of them, scattered across the planet and throughout the solar system. This is what you can see with your sensors, Hai Jin said calmly. We have 3 times this many installations that are hidden. We have weapon systems your scientists haven't even theorized yet. We have contingency plans for scenarios that would give your strategists nightmares. Admiral Dongjun stood up. You came here expecting us to surrender. That's not going to happen. Instead, I'm going to make you a counteroffer. Take your ship. Leave our solar system. Tell your council that Earth is not interested in joining. Tell them that if they want a war, we'll give them one they'll remember for the next 3,000 years. Or tell them that we can talk like civilized beings and find a way to coexist. Peacefully. The council does not. Negotiate with inferior species. Then the council is about to learn a very painful lesson about the difference between inferior and inexperienced. Ji Woo opened the conference room door. You have your answer, Ambassador. We will not surrender. We will not kneel. If your fleet comes here with hostile intent, we will defend ourselves. And I promise you, the casualties will be heavily in our favor. Tae-yang and his companions stood up. The ambassador's compound eyes glittered with anger. You are making a fatal mistake. Our fleet will crush you. Your cities will burn. Your species will beg for the mercy you refuse today. Maybe, Ji Woo said. Or maybe your fleet will limp home with a story about the day they tried to bully humanity and learned why that was a bad idea. Either way, we'll find out in 3 days. The aliens left without another word. Their shuttle returned to their massive ship. Within an hour, the ship jumped to faster-than-light speed and disappeared. On the bridge, Ji Woo's officers gathered around her. A young lieutenant named Jae-won looked nervous. "Captain, did we just start a war with an interstellar empire?" Ji Woo watched the empty space where the alien ship had been. "No, Lieutenant. We just made it very clear that starting a war with us would be a mistake. Now contact Fleet Command. Tell Admiral Dongjun to activate the Mars Protocol. If they're coming with a fleet, we're going to give them a welcome they'll never forget." Major Hai Jin smiled grimly. "You really think they'll attack?" "Oh, they'll attack. Their pride won't let them back down. They've never been defied before." Ji Woo turned away from the window. "But that's fine. Let them come. Let them learn. Humanity has been preparing for hostile first contact since we first looked up at the stars and wondered what was out there. Now we get to show the galaxy what happens when you threaten Earth. They think we're primitives. Good. Let them think that. Underestimating your enemy is the first step to losing." Ji Woo headed toward the door, then paused. "Oh, and make sure the media gets footage of the alien ship. I want every human on Earth to know what's coming. If we're going to war, everyone deserves to know why." 3 days. The Galactic Council would arrive in 3 days expecting to find us scared. Primitive species ready to surrender. Instead, they would find humanity. The Galactic Council chamber floated in deep space. A massive station built from crystalline structures that pulsed with soft light. Inside the main hall, representatives from 14 species gathered in a circle. At the center stood High Chancellor Yuna, a being made of pure energy contained in a geometric crystal shell. Her voice echoed through the chamber without needing air or sound. Ambassador Tae-Yang stood before the council, his 4 arms held in a position of formal address. Around him, the other council members watched through various forms of eyes, sensors, and perception fields. Some looked like animals from Earth nightmares. Others were so alien that Tae-Yang himself struggled to understand their forms, even after centuries of service. "The humans have refused our offer," Tae-Yang reported. His translator made his clicking language into something the council could understand. "They showed no fear. They even laughed at our ultimatum." High Chancellor Yuna's crystal form brightened with what might have been anger. "Laughed? A primitive species laughed at the Galactic Council?" "Yes, Chancellor. Their military commander, a female called Ji Woo, suggested that we bring our fleet and discover what happens when we threaten Earth. She claimed they have been preparing for hostile first contact for decades. She called our threat assessment adorably optimistic." A ripple of shock went through the council. In 3,000 years, no species had ever refused them. Some had tried to negotiate. Some had asked for better terms. But none had laughed. None had invited war. "This is unacceptable," Yuna declared. "We cannot allow this defiance to stand. If other species learn that the humans refused us and survived, our authority will crumble. We must make an example of Earth." Counselor Min Ho, a reptilian being with scales that changed color with his emotions, raised one clawed hand. "Perhaps we should investigate further before committing to war." The humans seemed confident. "What if they possess weapons we haven't detected?" "Impossible," Tae-Yang said. "We have monitored their development for 50 years. They barely have fusion power. Their fastest ships use primitive chemical propulsion. Their weapons are kinetic and nuclear. We have shielding that makes such weapons obsolete. They cannot harm us. Then why did they laugh?" Min Ho's scales shifted to a worried purple. "Pride, ignorance, madness. It doesn't matter." Yuna's form pulsed brighter. "Send a fleet. 500 warships should be more than sufficient. Destroy one of their cities as we promised. When they see their people burning, they will surrender. And if they don't? Min-Ho asked quietly. Then we will destroy another city, and another, until they kneel or until there are no humans left to refuse us. The vote was called. 13 species agreed. Only Min-Ho abstained, his scales a deep, troubled purple. The council fleet gathered at the edge of Earth's solar system 3 days later. 500 ships of various designs, each one deadly, each one proven in battle. The flagship, Eternal Mandate, was a dreadnought-class vessel 5 kilometers long. Its weapons could crack a planet's crust. Its shields could withstand a supernova. Admiral Kyung-Soo commanded the fleet from the Eternal Mandate's bridge. He was a veteran of the Council's last war, 200 years ago. That conflict had lasted 6 hours before the enemy surrendered. He expected this one to be even shorter. All ships assume attack formation around the third planet, he ordered. Charge weapons. Prepare to demonstrate Council authority. The fleet moved into position, surrounding Earth like predators circling prey. Their sensors swept the planet, cataloging cities, military installations, population centers. There were over 8 billion humans down there, all of them about to learn the cost of defiance. On Earth, Captain Ji-Woo watched the alien fleet from her orbital station. She stood calm and still, her hands behind her back, her expression neutral. Major Hai-Jin stood beside her, counting ships on the tactical display. 503 vessels, Hai-Jin reported. Mass ranges from frigate class to dreadnought class. Energy signatures indicate plasma-based weapons and particle shielding. Exactly what we expected from Council technology. Good, Ji-Woo said. Contact Admiral Dong-Jun. Tell him the guests have arrived. It's time for the demonstration. Minutes later, Admiral Dong-Jun's face appeared on every screen in the defense network. He was broadcasting from Pacific Command, deep underground in a bunker. They could survive a direct nuclear strike. Attention Council Fleet, Dong-Jun said calmly. This is Admiral Dong-Jun of United Earth Defense Force. Before we begin hostilities, I'd like to propose a test. A demonstration of capabilities. We will both fire on designated coordinates in deep space. No tricks, no combat. Just a simple comparison of firepower. Are you willing? Admiral Kyung-Soo almost refused on principle, but curiosity stopped him. What could these primitives possibly show him? Agreed. Transmit coordinates. Dong-Jun sent the location, a point in empty space exactly 100,000 kilometers from Earth. Far enough to be safe. Close enough to observe clearly. Fire when ready, Dong-Jun said. Show us Council power. Kyung-Soo smiled with whatever served him as a mouth. All ships, target the coordinates. Full weapons release. Let's show these humans what real power looks like. 500 ships opened fire simultaneously. Plasma cannons, particle beams, antimatter missiles, and fusion warheads all streaked toward the target point. The combined firepower could have sterilized a continent. Space itself seemed to burn as the weapons converged. The explosion lit up sensors across the solar system. A miniature star bloomed in the darkness, visible from Earth with the naked eye. The energy release was tremendous, awesome, terrifying. Aboard the Eternal Mandate, Hyung-Soo's crew cheered. Some of them made gestures of triumph in their various cultural ways. The Admiral himself felt satisfaction. Let the humans see this and despair. Impressive, Dong-Chun's voice came through, completely calm. Now it's our turn. Just one shot. We'll keep it simple. Watch carefully. Deep in the Gobi Desert, a facility that looked like an ordinary mining operation opened its roof. Inside was a railgun, one of humanity's older designs, built 30 years ago. The barrel was 2 kilometers long. The projectile was tungsten carbide, a solid rod the size of a telephone pole. Shaped for maximum penetration, the power plant attached to the railgun was a fusion reactor, operating at 90% capacity. Every amp of electricity it generated flowed into the magnetic coils that lined the barrel. The rod fired it accelerated through the barrel in 0.3 seconds, reaching a velocity of 900 kilometers per second. That was roughly 0.3% the speed of light. The air around the barrel ionized from the heat. Thunder rolled across the desert. The rod crossed 100,000 kilometers of space in 4.7 seconds. When it hit the designated coordinates, reality screamed. The kinetic energy was absurd. At that speed, mass became its own weapon. The tungsten rod didn't explode in any conventional sense. It transferred all its momentum into a single point in space, creating a shockwave that propagated through the quantum foam of spacetime itself. The Council fleet's sensors went insane. Warning alarms shrieked across 500 ships. Shields flickered and failed from the gravitational pulse. Several smaller ships lost power completely. The Eternal Mandate shuddered, its massive frame rattling like a tin can. Kyung-Soo stared at the readings, unable to believe them. That's impossible. The energy release. It's 10 times what we generated. From a single projectile? Ji Woo's voice came through the communication channel, and now she was smiling. Everyone on the council ships could hear it in her tone. That was facility number 741. We call it Old Faithful because it's been operational for 3 decades without major maintenance. We have 846 more facilities like it scattered throughout the solar system. Some are bigger. Some use different ammunition. A few are considerably more creative in their destructive application. She paused, letting that sink in. You fired 500 ships worth of weaponry and created a pretty light show. We fired 1 gun and made space itself scream. Would you like to continue this comparison, or shall we discuss surrender terms? And to be clear, Admiral, I'm asking if you'd like to discuss your surrender, not ours. Silence filled the communication channel. Kyung-Soo looked at his sensor officer, hoping for an explanation, hoping this was some kind of trick or illusion. The sensor officer's skin had turned the color of fear in his species. Admiral, the readings are accurate. That single kinetic round released more energy than our entire volley. And she says they have 800 more installations. If they fire even a tenth of those at us. He didn't need to finish the sentence. Admiral Dongjun spoke again, his voice harder now. Official. Council fleet, you came here to threaten Earth. You wanted to destroy one of our cities as a demonstration. Here's our demonstration. We don't need to destroy cities. We can destroy fleets from the safety of our planetary defenses, without exposing a single ship, without risking a single life. This is your first and only warning. Leave our solar system. Return to your council. Tell them that Earth declines their offer. If you choose to attack anyway, we will defend ourselves. And I promise you, Admiral, the casualty ratio will not be in your favor. Kyung-Soo felt something he hadn't felt in 2 centuries of military service. Fear, real, genuine fear of defeat. Admiral, his tactical officer whispered, recommend immediate withdrawal to lunar orbit. We need time to analyze their capabilities and develop countermeasures. Kyung-Soo wanted to refuse. His pride demanded he attack, that he teach these primitives their place. But his training, his experience, his duty to his crew, all told him the same thing. He had walked into a trap. He had assumed the humans were helpless. He had been wrong. All ships withdraw to lunar orbit, he ordered. Maintain defensive formation. Do not fire unless fired upon. As the Council fleet retreated, pulling back to the relative safety of Earth's moon, the humans didn't pursue. They didn't gloat. They simply watched and waited. On her station. Ji Woo turned to Hai Jin. Contact all installations. Stand down to alert level 2. They're not going to attack today. You think they'll leave? No. They'll report back to their council. They'll ask for more ships, better weapons, new strategies. They'll convince themselves that we got lucky, that we revealed our best weapons already, that they can still win. Ji Woo looked out at the distant alien fleet, small dots against the massive moon. And then they'll come back, and we'll have to show them we weren't bluffing. How many ships do you think they'll bring next time? High Chancellor Yuna refused to accept the reports from Admiral Kyung-soo. The humans couldn't possibly have weapons that powerful. It had to be a trick, some kind of illusion designed to make the council retreat. She called an emergency session and demanded answers. Send a spy, she ordered. I want to know the truth about these humans. How they really fight. What they really have. We need intelligence before we commit the full armada. The task fell to investigator Min Co, a member of the Veltari species. His kind were telepaths and shapeshifters, perfect for infiltration. He could read surface thoughts, copy physical forms, and blend into any society. He had conducted 100 espionage missions and never been caught. Earth would be simple. Min Co took the form of a human male, young and unremarkable. He arrived in New Seoul through a smuggler's route, paying a corrupt freighter captain to drop him off with irregular trade goods. The humans had opened limited trade with a few independent species, not part of the council. Getting onto Earth was easier than he expected. New Seoul was enormous, a city of 30 million people stacked in towers that reached into the clouds. Lights blazed everywhere. Screens showed advertisements, news, entertainment. The noise was overwhelming. So many minds, so many thoughts, all of them loud and chaotic. Min Co had studied human culture from intercepted broadcasts, but being among them was different. They moved fast, talked fast, thought fast. Their minds jumped from topic to topic with dizzying speed. Reading their surface thoughts was like trying to drink from a fire hose. He started with the obvious places. Military installations would be too well guarded, so he focused on civilian areas. Surely someone would be talking about the weapons. Worried about the alien threat, discussing the recent confrontation. Instead, he found something disturbing. In a small apartment. A human child named J1 was playing a video game. Min Co watched over the boy's shoulder, scanning his thoughts. The game was violent, brutally so. The player controlled a soldier fighting through a city, killing enemies with guns, explosives, even bare hands. The game rewarded creativity in killing. More deaths meant higher scores. What are you playing? Min Co asked, trying to sound casual. J1 didn't look up. Warzone Eternal. It's the new one. You get bonus points for war crimes. War crimes? Yeah, you know. Using banned weapons, targeting civilians, that stuff. It's just a game, though. Not real. Min Co felt a chill run through his borrowed human form. The child was 10 years old. He was practicing mass murder for entertainment and saw nothing wrong with it. Min Co scanned deeper into J1's mind and found no guilt, no trauma. Just the simple understanding that games were. Games and reality was reality. The Veltari investigator left the apartment and wandered through the city, observing, listening, reading minds. What he discovered made his blood run cold. Humans were casually, constantly violent. In a bookstore, he found an entire section dedicated to military history. Thousands of books about thousands of wars. Humans had been fighting each other since they climbed down from trees. They had detailed records of every battle, every weapon, every strategy. They studied war the way other species studied art. In a movie theater, he watched a film where the hero killed 247 people. The audience cheered. They ate popcorn and drank soda and applauded when the hero shot someone in the face. Min Seo sat frozen in his seat, surrounded by humans who were entertained by death. He visited a library and accessed their public database. Human history was a continuous chain of warfare. In 10,000 years of recorded civilization, they had been at peace for less than 300 years total. They had invented thousands of ways to kill each other. Swords, arrows, guns, bombs, poisons, diseases, fire, drowning, crushing, tearing, burning. They had invented nuclear weapons and immediately built thousands of them. When they realized a nuclear war would destroy everyone, they didn't get rid of the weapons. They kept them as threats, as deterrents. They called it mutually assured destruction, and somehow thought this was a reasonable basis for peace. Min Seo needed to understand the weapons, the military capabilities. He needed hard data. So he did something risky. He approached a weapons researcher. Dr. Su Bin worked at a civilian technology firm that had military contracts. Min Seo posed as a journalist doing a story on Earth's defense preparations. Su Bin agreed to meet him at a cafe near her office. She was young for a human, maybe 30 years old, with short black hair and glasses. She ordered coffee with an alarming amount of sugar and smiled pleasantly at Min Seo's questions. So you want to know about our weapons? That's not classified. I mean, the specific details are, but the general concepts are public knowledge. She pulled up a tablet and started showing him diagrams. We have several hundred railgun installations throughout the solar system. Those are the kinetic weapons you saw demonstrated. Simple physics. Accelerate mass to high velocity. Energy equals 1/2 mass times velocity squared. But where does the power come from? Fusion reactors mostly. We have 230 fusion plants dedicated purely to weapon systems. We can generate enough power to fire the railguns every 6 minutes if needed. Min Seo tried to imagine 500 railgun rounds fired every 6 minutes. The Council fleet wouldn't survive the first hour. And you have other weapons? Oh, lots. Railguns are actually pretty old technology for us. We have particle beam weapons, plasma cannons, missile swarms with high guidance systems. We're working on gravitational manipulation weapons that can create localized black holes. Those are still experimental, though. She said it so casually, like she was discussing gardening techniques. We also have the antimatter stockpile, Su Bin continued. That's mainly for ship propulsion, but in an emergency, we could weaponize it. 1 gram of antimatter produces the same energy as a 43 kiloton nuclear bomb. How much antimatter do you have? About 200 kilograms in storage. We produce more every day. Min Seo did the math in his head. 200 kilograms of antimatter. That was enough explosive power to destroy every council world 10 times over. And they were making more every day. Why? He asked, forgetting to maintain his journalist cover. Why do you need so much destructive power? Su Bin looked at him strangely. In case we need it. You never know what's out there in space. We spent thousands of years fighting each other on Earth. Now we're preparing to fight whatever else exists in the universe. It's just common sense. You're preparing for war with species you haven't even met yet? We met you guys, didn't we? And you showed up demanding surrender. Turns out we were right to prepare. She smiled and sipped her coffee. Can I tell you about our military doctrine? Please. It's based on something we developed during the Cold War. Back when 2 human nations had enough nuclear weapons to destroy Earth multiple times over. They didn't go to war because both sides knew that attacking meant their own destruction. We call it mutually assured destruction. You've mentioned this before in your broadcasts. But that only works if both sides have equal weapons. Right. So we make sure we always have enough weapons that any enemy knows attacking us means their own death. Even if they destroy Earth, we have enough automated systems, enough hidden bases, enough sleeper ships with weapons packages that will still kill them. We call it the Dead Hand Protocol. You're insane, Minzio whispered. Su Bin laughed. We prefer to think of ourselves as thoroughly prepared. Would you like to see the Mars installation? We give tours on Thursdays. The antimatter containment fields are really quite beautiful. Min So excused himself and left. He walked through the streets of New Seoul in a daze, his mind reeling. These weren't just warriors. These were people who had spent 10,000 years perfecting the art of killing and had now turned that expertise toward the stars. He found a quiet park and sat on a bench, watching human children play. They were playing war, running around with toy guns, shooting each other and laughing when they died. Then they'd get up and play again. War was a game to them. Death was temporary. Violence was entertainment. A young girl, maybe 6 years old, came up to him. "Are you okay, mister? You look sad." "I'm fine," Minzio said. "Just thinking." "About the aliens?" "My dad says they're scared of us now. Are you scared of them?" The girl thought about it. "No, my dad says we have big guns. And he says humans are really good at fighting. So it's okay." She ran off to rejoin her friends, leaving Minzio sitting alone with a horrible realization. The humans weren't worried about the Galactic Council. They weren't scared of invasion. They had spent their entire existence preparing for this exact scenario. They had built their entire civilization around the assumption that someone, somewhere, would eventually try to kill them, and they needed to be ready to kill back harder. They didn't just have weapons. They had a culture of warfare. Fighting was in their bones, their blood, their DNA. They had evolved as predators and never stopped being predators. They had simply gotten better tools. Minzio changed his form and caught a shuttle back to the smuggler's ship. He needed to report to the council immediately. This wasn't a military intelligence issue. This was an existential threat. 3 days later, he stood before High Chancellor Yuna in the full council, giving his report. "They're not bluffing," he said. "The weapons are real. The capabilities are real. But that's not what you need to understand. The weapons are just tools. The real danger is the humans themselves." "Explain," Yuna demanded. "They have a culture built on violence. They practice war as entertainment. They teach their children to think strategically about killing from the age of 5. They have spent 10,000 years fighting each other, developing weapons, learning tactics, perfecting strategies. They've barely left their solar system, but they've already been preparing for interstellar war for decades. We outnumber them. We have 3,000 warships. It won't matter. They don't fight honorably. They don't fight fairly. They fight to win, using any method necessary. They have military doctrine based on ensuring that even if they lose, they take their enemy with them. They call it mutually assured destruction, and they've built their entire defense strategy around it." Counselor Minho's scales had turned pale gray. "Are you saying we can't defeat them?" "I'm saying that if we try, even if we win, the cost will be catastrophic. They have enough weapons hidden throughout their system to cripple our fleet. And if we destroy Earth, they have automated systems that will hunt down and destroy every council world in revenge. They've planned for their own extinction and made sure it won't be cheap." Yuna's crystal form blazed bright with fury. "Then we must destroy them before they spread. If they leave their system, if they establish colonies, if they build fleets of their own, they'll become unstoppable. We attack now with everything we have. We crush them completely." "That's exactly what they want," Minzio said quietly. "They've been hoping for hostile first contact. It validates every paranoid preparation they've made. It proves they were right to build all those weapons. If we attack, we're playing their game. And they've been practicing that game for 10,000 years. The council chamber fell silent. For the first time in 3,000 years of dominance, the Galactic Council faced an enemy they couldn't bully and couldn't ignore. Vote, Una said. Do we attack or do we retreat? The vote was close. 8 for war, 6 for withdrawal. War won got the Council Armada gathered at the edge of known space. A fleet so massive it had never been assembled before in 3,000 years of Council rule. 3,000 warships from 14 different species. Dreadnoughts that could crack planets. Carriers that launched fighter swarms. Cruisers armed with weapons that could boil oceans. Every ship in the Council's military had been called to this battle. High Chancellor Una herself came aboard the command ship, a statement that this was no ordinary war. This was an execution. The Council would make an example of humanity so complete, so brutal, that no other species would ever dare refuse them again. Admiral Kyung-Zu stood on the bridge of the Eternal Mandate, watching the fleet assemble. 3,000 ships. He had brought 500 before and retreated. Now he had 6 times that many. Surely this would be enough, but he remembered that single railgun shot, the way it had made space scream, and the human captain's words, "We have 846 more." "Admiral," his tactical officer reported, "all ships are in position. We're ready to jump to the Sol system. Do we have updated intelligence on human defenses?" "No, sir." Investigator Min Seo's report was 3 weeks ago. The humans could have prepared additional defenses in that time. Or they could be bluffing. Yuna's voice came through the command channel. Her crystal form hovered beside Kyung-Su, pulsing with angry light. 3 weeks is not enough time to build significant new weapons. We have 3,000 ships. They have 1 planet. The mathematics favor us. Kyung-Su wasn't so sure, but he gave the order. All ships jump on my mark. We enter Sol system in battle formation. Weapons charged, shields at maximum. Be prepared for immediate combat. 3,000 ships jumped to faster than light speeds simultaneously. Space twisted and bent. Reality screamed. They emerged in the Sol system in a perfect attack formation, surrounding Earth from every angle. It was the most powerful military force ever assembled. Nothing could stand against them. On Earth, alarms shrieked across every defense installation. Admiral Dong Jun sat in Pacific Command's war room, watching the tactical display filled with red dots. 3,000 enemy ships. More than he'd expected. Less than he'd planned for. "Status report," he ordered calmly. Captain Ji Woo's face appeared on screen from her orbital station. "Enemy fleet detected. Count 3,000 plus. They're forming a sphere around Earth. Standard Council doctrine. They plan to attack from all directions simultaneously. Have they hailed us? Not yet. They're probably expecting us to beg for mercy." Dongjun smiled grimly. "Then let's surprise them. Activate the Mars Protocol. All installations to combat ready. And send them a message. Just 1 word." "What word, sir?" "Welcome." On the Eternal Mandate, the communication officer received a transmission from Earth. A single word in their own language. "Welcome." Kyung-Su felt ice form in whatever passed for his stomach. The humans weren't scared. They weren't negotiating. They were welcoming the fight. "High Chancellor," he said carefully, "I recommend we offer one final surrender demand before engaging. Give them a chance to reconsider." "No," Una said flatly. "We've given them chances. They laughed at us. They rejected us. Now we show them the price of defiance. All ships, open fire. Destroy everything." 3,000 ships unleashed their weapons simultaneously. Plasma beams, particle cannons, antimatter missiles. and fusion warheads all converged on Earth. The firepower was enough to sterilize a dozen planets. Space lit up like a new sun as the weapons streaked toward the blue world dot, and then they hit the mines. Earth's asteroid belt had been quietly mined for 60 years. Not for resources, for weapons. 57 of the largest asteroids had been hollowed out, filled with nuclear-pumped electromagnetic pulse devices, and left floating in apparently natural orbits. Now, they all detonated at once. The electromagnetic pulse was biblical in scale. It washed over the Council fleet like a tidal wave of invisible energy. Shields flickered. Power systems crashed. Ship after ship went dark as their electronics fried. Half the fleet lost power in the first 3 seconds. The other half, the ships with better shielding or lucky positioning, suddenly found themselves unable to maneuver. Their formation had become a death trap, packed tight with disabled vessels. Now, Admiral Dongjun said quietly, the railguns opened fire. They fired from Mercury, from Venus, from Mars, from Earth's moon, and from 36 hidden stations scattered throughout the solar system. 846 railguns, each one loaded with tungsten penetrators. Each one accelerated to 0.3% the speed of light. The math was simple and brutal. 846 rounds, targeting 3,000 ships. The firing solution had been calculated months ago. The humans knew exactly where the Council fleet would appear. They'd studied Council tactics from intercepted data. They knew the formation patterns. They had prepared for this exact scenario. Tungsten rain fell on the Council fleet. Ships died. Not one at a time. Not in small numbers. They died by the hundreds. The kinetic rounds punched through shields like they didn't exist. They tore through hulls. They vaporized crew compartments. Each impact released energy equivalent to a large nuclear weapon. Admiral Kyung-soo watched in horror as his fleet was shredded. Evasive maneuvers. All ships scatter. But half his ships were dead in space, their power systems fried by the EMP. The other half were trying to navigate through a debris field of their own disabled vessels. They couldn't scatter. They couldn't evade. They could only die. The second volley of railgun fire arrived 6 minutes later. Another 846 rounds. More ships died. Return fire. Kong-Su ordered desperately. Target the source of those projectiles. The remaining ships tried to fight back. They fired at Mercury, at Venus, at Mars. Their weapons struck moon bases and space stations. Some of the human installations went dark, destroyed by Council firepower, but the railguns kept firing. Third volley. Fourth volley. Fifth volley. Every 6 minutes, like clockwork. Tungsten death falling from the sky. The Council fleet tried to retreat, but the humans had planned for that too. FTL inhibitors, hidden throughout the solar system, generated fields that made faster-than-light travel impossible. The Council ships were trapped, unable to jump away, unable to escape. It wasn't a battle. It was a slaughter. High Chancellor Yuna's crystal form blazed with fury. This is impossible. We have 3,000 ships. We had 3,000 ships, Kong-Su corrected grimly. He was watching his fleet die. 2,000 ships destroyed in the first hour. The survivors were scattered, disorganized, desperate. Chancellor, we must negotiate. We cannot win this. We are the Galactic Council. We do not lose. A railgun round struck the Eternal Mandate's shields. They held, but barely. The massive dreadnought shook like a toy. Warning alarms screamed across every system. Kyung-Su made a decision. All surviving ships cease fire. Fall back to lunar orbit. Navigation. Calculate emergency jump coordinates outside the inhibitor field. You cannot retreat. Yuna's form pulsed with rage. I'm saving what's left of our fleet, Chancellor. We've lost. The humans have won. The surviving council ships, barely 900 vessels, pulled back toward Earth's moon. They limped away from the battle, trailing debris and atmosphere. Their proud formations reduced to scattered survivors, running for their lives, that the railguns stopped firing, that an eerie silence fell over the Sol system. The debris field of destroyed council ships floated in space, a graveyard of alien technology. 2,100 ships destroyed, 900 survivors, most of them damaged. Captain Ji Woo broadcast on all frequencies, her voice calm and professional. Attention Council Fleet. This is Captain Ji Woo of the United Earth Defense Force. The battle is over. You have permission to retreat beyond the FDL inhibitor field. You may leave in peace. We will not pursue you. Why? Admiral Kyung-soo asked, his voice broken. Why let us go? Because this was never about killing you, Admiral. This was about making you understand. Earth will not surrender. Earth will not kneel. If you come back, we'll destroy you again. If you leave us alone, we'll leave you alone. The choice is yours. Kyung-soo looked at the tactical display. 900 ships left from 3,000. Over 200,000 crew members dead. The greatest defeat in Council history. What are your terms? He asked quietly. No terms. Just a message. Take it back to your Council. Tell them that humanity offers peace, but we will not accept subjugation. Tell them that if they want to coexist with us, we're willing to talk. But if they want to rule us, they can try. We'll be here, waiting. The communication ended. High Chancellor Yuna's crystal form had dimmed to almost nothing. The fury was gone, replaced by something the Council hadn't felt in 3,000 years. Defeat. Fall back, she said quietly. Fall back to Council space. The surviving ships jumped away, leaving behind a debris field that would orbit Sol for centuries. A permanent reminder of the day the Galactic Council learned that humanity could not be conquered. On Earth, Admiral Dong Jun stood in the war room, watching the alien ships disappear. Major Hai Jin stood beside him, looking at the casualty reports from their own side. 14 installations destroyed, she said. 3,217 personnel killed. 16 ships damaged beyond repair. And the enemy? 2,100 ships destroyed. Estimated casualties over 200,000. Surviving ships severely damaged. No pursuit necessary. Dongjun nodded slowly. The numbers were brutal, but they told the story clearly. Humanity had won. Not because they had better ships. Not because they had some secret technology. They had won because they had prepared. Because they had studied war for 10,000 years. Because when the Council came looking for a fight, humanity had been ready to give them one they'd remember forever. Send a message to all defense forces, Dongjun said. Stand down to alert level 3. Maintain surveillance, but cease active targeting. If they come back, we'll deal with it. But I don't think they will. Not for a long time. What do we do now, sir? Now? Dongjun smiled tiredly. Now we wait and see if the Council wants peace or if they want round 2. Either way, we'll be ready. Above Earth, Captain Ji Woo looked out at the stars and wondered what came next. The Council had learned that humanity couldn't be bullied, but that lesson had cost hundreds of thousands of lives on both sides. War was hell, humans had always said. But sometimes hell was necessary to prevent something worse. Captain, her communications officer called out. We're receiving a transmission from the Council fleet. It's Ambassador Taeyang. Ji Woo straightened. Put him through. The mantis-like alien appeared on screen. He looked different now. Smaller somehow, diminished. Captain Ji Woo, he said formally. The Council wishes to negotiate. We request a formal ceasefire and peace talks. 6 months later, the Galactic Council chamber looked different. The crystalline walls that had stood unchanged for 3,000 years now had a new addition. A seat for Earth, a place for humanity at the table. High Chancellor Yuna was gone. The Council had voted her out 3 days after the battle. Her pride had cost them 2,000 ships and hundreds of thousands of lives. In her place sat Ambassador Tai Yang, the same mantis-like being who had first delivered the surrender demand to Earth. He had learned humility the hard way. The council chamber was quiet as Ambassador Ji Woo entered. She wore a formal Earth diplomatic uniform, dark blue with silver trim. Her gray-streaked hair was pulled back. She walked with confidence, not arrogance. The difference mattered. Behind her came Admiral Dong Shun and Dr. Subin, representing Earth's military and scientific communities. They took their seats at the new table, positioned as equals to the other council members. Tai Yang spoke first, his translator converting his clicking language to something everyone could understand. Ambassador Ji Woo, on behalf of the Galactic Council, I welcome Earth to this assembly. We gather today to formalize the terms of peace between our peoples. Ji Woo inclined her head. Thank you, High Chancellor. Earth accepts this invitation in the spirit of cooperation and mutual respect. The formal language was necessary. Both sides had lawyers and diplomats who had spent months crafting these phrases. Every word had been negotiated. But underneath the formality, everyone in the room knew the truth. The council had started a war and lost. Now they had to live with the consequences. Let us review the terms, Tai Yang said. He projected a holographic document in the center of the chamber. Earth agrees to join the galactic community as an independent sovereign state. You will not be subject to council governance. You will maintain your own military, your own laws, your own territory. In exchange, you agree to certain trade regulations and diplomatic protocols. Agreed, Go-Wu said, with the amendment that Earth reserves the right to refuse any regulation that conflicts with human rights or sovereignty. As we discussed, Tai Yang's antennae twitched, but he nodded. That had been a hard-fought addition to the treaty. The Council wanted to maintain some control. Humanity had refused to give them any. Earth also agrees to share certain technologies with the Council, Tai Yang continued. Specifically, your fusion reactor designs and your medical advances. In exchange, the Council will share our FTL drive technology and our terraforming techniques. Dr. Subin spoke up, with the understanding that Earth retains all rights to our weapons technology. That remains classified and non-negotiable. Several council members shifted uncomfortably. They wanted those railguns. They wanted the EMP mines. They wanted to know how humanity had developed such devastating weapons with such primitive resources, but they had no leverage. Not anymore. Agreed, Tai Yang said reluctantly. And finally, Earth offers military protection to any council species that requests it. 3 species have already accepted this offer. That had been the real diplomatic victory for humanity. 3 species, smaller ones that had been bullied by the Council for centuries, had seen what Earth could do and wanted that power on their side. The Council couldn't refuse without looking weak. They couldn't accept without admitting they needed human protection. It was a brilliant political trap, and Ji Woo had said it perfectly. Protection from what? Counselor Minho asked. His scales were a neutral green now, not the fearful purple they'd been during the war. The Council maintains peace in this sector. The Council maintained control, Ji Woo corrected gently. Peace is something different. Peace is when everyone feels safe enough to live their lives without fear. Some of your member species don't feel that safety. Earth is offering them an alternative. You're building an alliance against us. We're building relationships based on mutual benefit, not fear. There's a difference. The vote was called. The Council officially recognized Earth as a sovereign state and accepted the terms of peace. 12 votes in favor, 2 abstentions, 0 against. As the formal session ended, investigator Min Seo approached Ji Woo. He had been present during the negotiations, providing his expertise on human psychology. Now he looked at her with something like respect, mixed with lingering fear. "You knew we would attack," he said quietly. "From the very beginning. That first meeting when Ambassador Taeyang delivered the ultimatum. You wanted us to bring our fleet." Ji Woo didn't deny it. "We needed the galaxy to see what happens when you threaten humanity. Words wouldn't have been enough. You had to learn through experience. You started a war to prevent future wars? We ended a war before it could grow into something worse," Ji Woo corrected. "Your council ruled through fear for 3,000 years. You believed your own propaganda about being invincible. You had forgotten what our war looked like. Someone needed to remind you." Min Seo made a gesture that might have been agreement or resignation. 200,000 council personnel died in that battle. 3,000 of yours. Was it worth it? Ask me in 100 years. If humanity and the council are living in peace, if smaller species feel safe enough to refuse demands they don't like, if war becomes the exception instead of the expectation, then yes, it was worth it. And if the peace doesn't last? Ji Woo met his eyes. Then we'll fight again. And we'll win again. Because that's what humans do. We adapt. We prepare. We survive. You came to our solar system expecting submission. Instead, you found resistance. Next time, the galaxy will know better than to test us. There won't be a next time, Min Seo said. The council learned its lesson. Good. And those deaths meant something. Min Seo watched her walk away. And for the first time since infiltrating Earth, he felt something other than fear when thinking about humans. He felt hope. Maybe these violent, creative, terrifyingly prepared warriors could actually make the galaxy safer. Maybe fear of mutual destruction was better than the false peace of forced submission. On Earth, Admiral Dong Jun stood in the war room with Major Hai-jin and Captain Kyung-soo. Not the Council Admiral Kyung-soo. This was a human captain, recently promoted after the battle. They were reviewing defense preparations for the next potential conflict. Intelligence reports suggest 3 non-council species are watching us carefully, Hai-jin reported. They're not hostile yet, but they're curious about how we defeated the council so decisively. Let them watch, Dong-jun said. Transparency serves us better than secrecy now. The more species that know what happens when you threaten Earth, the safer we'll be. We lost 14 installations in the battle, Kyung-soo noted. Rebuilding will take years and cost billions. Then we rebuild bigger and better. We prepare for enemies we haven't met yet. That's what humanity does best. Dr. Su Bin entered the room carrying a data pad. Admiral, I have the report you requested on our new weapon systems. The gravitational manipulation devices are ready for testing. If they work as designed, we'll be able to create localized gravity wells that can trap enemy ships. Excellent. What about the antimatter missiles? Production is on schedule. We'll have 50 warheads ready by next year. 200 the year after that. Dong-jun nodded. The Council thought humanity had revealed all its weapons during the battle. They were wrong. The railguns and EMP mines were just the beginning. Humanity was already developing the next generation of weapons, the next level of defense, because the Council might have learned their lesson. But there were thousands of other species out there in the galaxy. Some of them would be friendly. Some would be neutral. And some, inevitably, would see humanity as a threat or a resource or a target. Humanity needed to be ready for all of them. Status on the colony ships? Dong Jun asked. First wave launches in 3 months, Haijin said. We're establishing settlements in the Alpha Centauri system. Small populations at first, but with full defensive installations. Each colony will be self-sufficient and capable of independent military action. Good. If something happens to Earth, humanity survives. That's the priority. The team continued their planning, discussing scenarios, preparing contingencies, building defenses for threats that might never come. It was what humans had always done. Plan for the worst. Hope for the best. Be ready for anything. 3,000 light-years away, on a planet the Council had never visited, a different species detected the battle's energy signature. They studied the data carefully, analyzed the tactics, calculated the capabilities. Their military commanders made notes. This new species, these humans, were dangerous, powerful, creative in their destruction. Best to avoid them. Or better yet, make them allies. But never, ever threaten them. The message spread quietly through non-Council space. There was a new player in the galaxy. A species that had defeated the Council's full military might. A species that didn't negotiate from fear. Some species saw opportunity. Some saw danger. All saw change. The galaxy would never be quite the same. On Earth, in a small apartment in New Seoul, young Jae-won played his video game. His mother called him for dinner. He saved his progress and went to eat. Chattering about his day at school. He mentioned that his teacher had talked about the war, about how Earth had fought and won, about how humanity had proven it could stand against any threat. His mother listened and smiled and served rice. Life went on. The war was over. Peace had come, bought with tungsten and blood, and the unwavering refusal to kneel. Outside, the stars shone bright. Somewhere out there, the galaxy was adjusting to a new reality. Humanity was no longer a primitive species confined to one planet. They were players on the galactic stage now, and the galaxy was learning, slowly but surely, that humans didn't surrender. Humans didn't submit. Humans didn't bow to threats or ultimatums or overwhelming force. When the Galactic Council had ordered Earth to surrender, humanity had simply laughed, and that laughter had changed everything. The Council had learned what every bully eventually learns. There's always someone stronger, someone meaner, someone more willing to fight, and in this case, that someone was humanity. The galaxy had been warned, not with words, but with actions, not with threats, but with demonstrated capability. Earth was open for peace. Earth was willing to cooperate. Earth would share technology and knowledge and friendship, but Earth would never surrender, never kneel, never submit. And now, finally, the galaxy understood.